Hello, welcome back to another video tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. This is my second introduction video to Cinema 4D, and I'm going to start off with Hexagon because I think most of the people who are familiar with my tutorials at Geekatplay are familiar with my Hexagon tutorials. So if you are a seasoned veteran using Hexagon and are thinking about migrating over to Cinema 4D, then I want to demonstrate some of the basics in Cinema 4D, and by doing so also compare them to what you are probably most familiar with in Hexagon. So let's start off by creating a cube in Hexagon. In Hexagon, all you have are primitive objects. It is a subdividing modeling program where you start off with a basic shape and then you start subdividing it from there and modeling your creation. Well, you cannot do anything unless you know how to select your objects or select portions of your object, which will then allow you to begin your modeling from there. In Hexagon, it's very easy. Select faces. You can select the face of your objects or faces. Select edges, same thing, and select points, the same thing. In Cinema 4D, come over here, and if you want to select a primitive, right up here at the top, you have your primitives. If you hold down your button, you have all these basic shapes you can choose from. So I'm going to start off with a cube. Now, something with Cinema 4D is that whenever you create an object, it is not immediately modifiable. And when I say modifiable, meaning you cannot edit it. You cannot select points, edges, and faces immediately. Instead, with most of the primitives, probably all of them, when you first create one, over here in the attribute section, let me come to a standard modeling layout so that my interface is, would be the same as yours. Okay, the attribute manager will give you lots of options on how you want to first start off with the creation of your primitive. Not modeling it, creating it. And in the attribute manager, under the object tab here, you've got basic coordinates, object, and Fong. Under the object tab, you can select the size of your object based on the X, Y, and Z axis, and you can also tell it how many subdivide sections or segments that you want to start off with, which is very helpful. I wish Hexagon had that same feature. Well, I'm going to start off with 3. So I'm just going to bump this up to 3. 3. Now, I have subdivided it how I want. But still, if I come up here and I have to be on my select, what is this called? Select something. And then come down over here to polygons. If I want to select a polygon, I have to have this selected here. If I want to select edges, I'll click there. If I want to select points, and then I'll select there. Well, I want to select polygons, but as you notice, I'm holding down my left mouse button and I'm not able to select anything. That's because the model, the object, is not modifiable yet. In other words, it's not editable. We cannot edit it. And to make an object editable so that you can then begin modeling off of it, you have to come right up here to this icon right here and click on it. This will make your object editable. Now you can select whatever you want. whether it's polygons, select edges, or select your points. Now if you have a mouse that has a mouse wheel on it, which it's pretty difficult to efficiently model without one. So if you don't have one, I certainly would recommend having one, getting one. But if you do have a mouse with a mouse wheel, if you hold down your left mouse button, you can see there's a little circle right at the end of my cursor. If you move your mouse wheel up, that circle increases in size. If you move your mouse wheel down, it decreases in size. So I use my right index finger holding down my left mouse button. Then I use my middle finger to move my mouse wheel so I can adjust the size of my selection cursor. This is what you see now moving around is my cursor. Hold down my mouse button. This is my selection cursor. So I can select a large area very quickly, or if I need to be precise, I can dial it down, make it small, and select individual elements of my object. So that is how that works. Now, what if you want to make a selection of a large group of objects? Say I want to select this edge, this edge, this edge, and I want this selection of edges to go all the way around. Well, in Hexagon, you did that by using the loop button up there, or the hotkey was L on the keyboard. In Hexagon, in Cinema 4D, it's a little bit different. It serves the same purpose because it allows you to make a loop selection, but the tools, as I said earlier, are different. So this is to get you familiar with it. If you hit the U key on your keyboard, it brings up, this is not playing friendly with my recording software. Don't touch your cursor. Leave your cursor alone. If you hit your U key, it will bring up this box that's quickly disappearing, but that's because of the recording software. And it will show you a whole bunch of tool selections A through Z. If you hit the U and then hit L, it will allow you to make a loop selection. So now when you move your cursor over your object, as you see, it is selecting a loop of edges. Well, that's what I want. Now all I need to do is move it around to designate which group or which loop of edges I want to select. If you get to a corner, it gets a little bit twitchy because it doesn't know exactly, it's hard to control exactly which loop of edges you want to select. So kind of keep it in the middle of a polygon. So I'll just keep it there. There you go. Now all of those are selected. If I want to do something with them, come back up here to the selection tool or the move tool, and now I can do whatever I want. If I want to make a selection of faces, then I'll click on faces there, U and L, and now I can select any selection of faces that I want. Come back over here, and I can do whatever I want with them. And the same goes for points. U and L, the hotkeys on the keyboard, and I want this selection of points, and I'll hold down Shift and I'll select that group also. Maybe I'll do these and do these as well. So now I've got my selection of all the elements on my object that I want. It's very simple. Alright, let me delete this, and we're going to come up to the primitives, and we're going to create a cylinder. Cylinders in Cinema 4D are a little bit different than cylinders in Hexagon. And I'll show you why. It first gives you the option over here on caps. Do you want to create a cap? In other words, caps are, do you want the top and bottom to be closed off? In Hexagon, you would hit, if you create a cylinder, you would hit the close all if you wanted to create caps at the ends. In Body Paint, Cinema 4D or Body Paint, you can choose caps. Well, let's say I want caps, okay, and then come back over to my Object tab, and I want height segments, well, let's say 5, and rotation segments, you can designate however many you want, just like in Hexagon. It's not any different. The orientation tab here, all this is just tells you how you want the object oriented on the screen. Radius, pretty obvious. Height, how tall do you want it, etc. Okay, this is what I want. Now remember, I cannot do anything to this until I make it editable. So I'll click on this button right up here, Make Object Editable, and I think the hotkey is C. Now, well, what I want to do is I want to stretch this cap taller. So I'm going to select all of the polygons on the top and move it up. Uh-oh, well, what's this? Well, what happened? Why is this a separate object? Well, it can't be a separate object. I only have one cylinder. So why did this thing come apart? What's going on? This is what I mean by when I said earlier that cylinders and some other primitives behave a little differently than they do in Hexagon. Because we created caps, they are disassociated with the main body of the cylinder, which is very similar in Hexagon. When you use the disassociate tab, if you disassociate an object, it behaves the same way. So because we created this cylinder with caps, the top and the bottom, the caps, are disassociated from the main body. And to get everything attached as you would probably want it to be and as you would expect it to be, all you've got to do is to come over here to your points, to select points. Now this tool only works if you have all of the points selected or none of the points selected. So I'm just going to make sure I click over here off of the object to make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to right click and I'm going to come down here to optimize. And what that will do is, with all of these defaults already selected, I'm just going to click OK. And what that will do is it will weld all of these points together. So now when I select the top of it and I pull up, and the same would be true if I did the same thing for the bottom, now it behaves as you would expect. Now the cap is attached to the cylinder, and you can go ahead and modify it from here and it behaves in a normal fashion. I want to cover one more tool in Cinema 4D for this tutorial. I'll do some more and demonstrate some other tools. One of them is cutting an object. In Hexagon, if you, let me delete this. We will create a new, I'll just create a cube. Okay, if I want to put a slice right through the center of this box, and then you're probably familiar with coming up to the Vertex Modeling tab, coming down here to Free Tessellate, come down here, Tessellation by Slice, hold down the Shift key, and it puts a nice slice all the way through the middle. Well, in Cinema 4D, you can do the same thing, but their tools behave a little bit differently, and so I want to demonstrate those. The shortcut key to put a slice or a cut through something is the K key. K is in king. So if I hit the K key, it brings up the knife tool. So forgive me, I said cut, it's the knife tool. It's pretty much the same. You have several options here. You have line, hole, plane, loop, and path. Well, I want to cut right across there. So I'm going to hold down my mouse button, click, drag across, and release, and it puts a cut right through there. Well, that's not exactly the cut the way that I wanted it to be cut. So let me Control Z to undo that. I'm going to come here to a front view, and I'm going to cut all the way across. There we are. Now let's come back to a perspective, and well, what's going on? I got the same thing happening. Let me undo that again. Come back to a front view. What I want to do is to cut all the way through, front, sides, and back. So to do that, in Cinema 4D, what you need to do is you need to select. It helps to select the polygons that you want to cut. So I'm going to hit U and L, and now I'll click here, and it will select all of the polygons on the top there. Come back to a front view. I'll hit the K key, and all I want to do is create a line, cut a line all the way through. Now, one of the options here is visible only. If I were to create a cut right now, and I'll do that. There we are. There's my cut. Let's come back to perspective. It only cut the ones that were visible from the view that we were looking at. And in this case, only the front ones. Well, I want the thing to go all the way through. So let me undo that. Control Z. I'm going to uncheck this. Visible only. Now it will cut through all of the polygons that I have selected. So I'll click, hold down my Shift key, drag across, hold down, click, hold down my Shift key, drag all the way across. Let's come back here to perspective view, and now you see I've got these cuts all the way across. Well, I like that. That's exactly what I wanted. Let me undo those two cuts, and I want to show you another feature of the knife tool. I'll hit K to bring up my knife tool. This is a really good feature for this tool. Instead of line, which is what we did when we were drawing those lines across, I'm going to come down here to loop. And now it will create a cut in a loop fashion all the way across. And of course, wherever I put the cursor, it will create make a loop selection from that. So I want to create a cut here. There we are. And right there. And it does the same thing. But I like the loop. I use the loop more often than I use the line tool. But each has its particular use. One other option that the knife tool has is I like using the plane feature of it. And what this will do is it will cut your object in a solid plane. See, it's not doing a loop like it did before. This is like a solid plane cutting right down through the object based on where you have designated the slice to be. Now right now it's set along the X and Y coordinates. You can change that to the Y or the Z, and it will make a cut this direction, or the X and Y, it will create a cut in that direction. One other very, very useful features is the snap setting. I'm going to come over here to the snap settings. I want to enable snapping because it will more precisely allow me to make some cuts on my object based on where I specify my snap setting. So I want to enable snapping, and I want to, let's say I want the tool to snap on the polygons. So I'll do edges, and I want it to snap on the center or the midpoint of the edges. So I'll select midpoint. And now when I get down here, you can see it kind of jumps right down here to the center. So I can easily make these subdivisions. And now I can make another one right there where that snaps, and another one where that snaps. Just these options here make it extremely useful in subdividing your object. Now I'm going to do one this way, and you would think that it will create almost like a plane type of loop or selection, but I'm going to click right here, and notice it only made cuts on the polygons that were selected. These were untouched. And that's why I said earlier you want to select the polygons only the polygons that you want to be cut, so that you don't have any unexpected results. One final thing that's really nice about Cinema 4D as opposed to Hexagon is I'm going to select these polygons here. I'm going to select these edges here, and come over here to points. I'm going to select these points here and some of these right here. Okay, in Hexagon, whenever you select whether it's a face, an edge, or a point, every time you change selection methods, you lose the designated areas that you have previously selected. So in Hexagon, if I select these faces, but then I come over here and select these edges, if I come back over here to faces, those aren't selected anymore. And the same happens with points. With Cinema 4D, I have these points selected. I'm going to come back over here to edges, and there's my original selection of edges. I'm going to come over here to polygons, and it remembered the selection of polygons that I previously selected, and it keeps going back and forth. It remembers that until you unselect it. Then if you go back, well, it's gone. But that's a nice, fast, useful feature when you need to jump back between various selections. All right, we're running into 23 minutes. That's it for this tutorial. I hope it's been helpful for you, and thanks for watching here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. Have a good day.